Can't forget Nana Cherry.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Trainman Report. This is the show where Alex Montagano, also known as the Trainman, and if you're on Facebook, he went ahead and gave Meta a little bit of money to officially be Alex Trainman Montagano on Facebook, so you can just see the link put together there. We also have Joel Ceausu. I think that's the closest I've gotten. Closest. We're pronouncing his name back with being our local NDG beat reporter. And to make it clear, all of the opinions spoken on this podcast are each individual. They're not even the opinions of the Trainman Report as a whole. Alex may say things I don't agree with. That's just how individuals speaking on podcasts
work. All heading just to the door.
You know, all you people at the Suburban, don't stress it. Joel takes all the accountability for his words tonight, whatever they may be, even though we're not trying to be that controversial. At least I don't think we are. That wasn't in the plans in my head. It wasn't like, let's piss off the world today. That wasn't how we woke up. We woke up like Alex is like, I've been in Mexico. Yeah. In Mexico and shit. And then he came back, and I don't think he's fully back into the Trainman grind. He's migrating.
Alex went to Mexico. I went to Costco.
Por favor, un cerveza.
Cerveza? Someone get this man a beer. What's happening?
So, how is Mexico, Alex? Sometimes, Mexico, Joel, when you move real quick, it confuses the camera, and you're going to get blurry. It's just the lives of webcams.
I thought it was the flashbacks from growing up in Chamonix. Okay.
Holden is always a gracious host and always working through the technical difficulties that us geezers are experiencing. Mexico was wonderful, and I am glad to be back. My parents are in Mexico, believe it or not, and they're quite elderly now, considering how old I am. So
you shipped off your parents to Mexico.
That's right. I just let the Mexico
couldn't find an ice flow here to.
And that's a testament.
The future, everybody.
And that's a testament to the generosity of the Mexicans, is that they can handle my parents.
What are we saying?
Welcome back.
So, what did you do while you were in Mexico?
I spent some quality time with my wife, who also doesn't share all of my opinions, and I spent time with my parents, of course, and dealt with issues that they have to deal with in their day-to-day lives that are unrelated to a vacation. And but I did get some good beach time. I like to free dive and go snorkeling, so I was able to do that. But the conditions weren't great. But I did get to see some nice stuff, and I was pleased with that. So it's all about getting exercise as well, right? Wow. So here we are.
My favorite post that y'all should follow Alex for, because you'll get these great posts, so it's important to do that, was this one where Alex was maybe having some I wasn't born in this country issues with the food, and then they gave him some rice in the shape of a person, and then out the butthole.
Can you bring that up?
Yeah, I could look for that. I'm going to try to find that for you while we're speaking. That was priceless.
That was a joke. That was a joke, guys.
Yeah, okay. Man, but
But it did happen. It did happen.
Now that we see it again, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I found that. I'm going to bring it over for the people to see.
I hope you're not eating. I hope nobody's at Three Amigos.
It's dinner time, guys.
Y'all can see it right over here. Let me zoom in for y'all. Alex, I know you guys can't see it, but the people can see it.
Oh, okay.
People can see it.
Right. Yeah, so I did have an incident in Mexico. I love street food. And you always expose yourself to the risk that there it is. You always expose yourself to the risk that something might go wrong with the whole sphincter digestive system, and it happened. And
all I'm going to say is it brought me back to being in Pakistan.
There we go. Yeah. So Holden, it's a risk of traveling, and it's not
especially
unique to Mexico.
If you're being brave with the food. Like if you just eat the safe stuff, like you could eat KFC the whole time and probably be all right. But we ate some street food breakfast one day because you've been there a week, you're feeling a little braver. Oh boy, did the next 2 days go very different than I expected.
The flora just don't match up.
No, but it's part of the process, and I would encourage everybody to do it. And there is a price to pay, but hey, it's worth it. That street food is just awesome. It's amazing.
Screw that CrossFit stuff. You want to shred? You go eat some street food, breakfast street food in Lahore, wherever.
Yeah.
I was in Lahore, actually.
There you go. I don't need no stinking intermittent fasting.
So let's, guys, I've been away, and obviously I've been surveying things from afar. And I guess, Joel, you're, again, I want everybody to know, and I repeat this often because I think it's important for it to be said. Joel Ceausu, I worked hard
Okay.
at that. I worked
I'll take
hard
it.
at
I'll
that.
take it.
Alex even
I'll
wrote
take it.
down like how
I
to
really
write this
worked hard at
phonetically.
that.
He's got a paper in front of him with it spelled phonetically.
And Ceausu.
Shout out Carl for being here in the chat.
Getting worse.
Said
And-
Alex's culinary escapades in Mexico. See, I knew that would be a hit with people.
So, on that note, I wanted to make the statement, and we digressed. That's cool. That Joel is the only local beat reporter that NDG has. Okay, there's none other. So
Can
he's
you
a
just
regular.
define local beat reporter for the people out there?
Yeah, he's reporting on local stories. He is the only reporter showing up at the borough council meetings. He obviously also follows the city council meetings downtown, and I do believe you also attend other borough council meetings in the area. And there's no other reporter that's doing that. And why? Well, I don't want to be making any accusations. It's a question of resources, and obviously Joel works for a newspaper who still has an interest and focus on local issues. So I want to thank Joel, and I also want to thank Suburban and in particular Barrow Wiseman for continuing to provide this coverage. And I say that sincerely. And Barrow needs me in any capacity to help him promote his paper, and I'm available to do that. I'll just leave it at that. All right, Barrow. So moving on, Joel, fill us in. There's a borough council that happened in March. I wasn't there for that. We still have some files open. Go ahead. Sorry.
I have to say it was kind of a tame affair. Now, usually after the Christmas break, there's a lot of files backed up, and people come back raring to go and pass legislation and spend the people's money. But it was a kind of anorexic agenda. There was not much on there. There was an announcement of a big infrastructure project happening in the Snowden area on sewers and sidewalk extensions. It's not very exciting, but very important to the people that live there that have been suffering with repeated flooding over the years. So they're spending a little more than $5 million to add a new sewer, and that's going to help a lot of folks who currently pull out the sandbags every time on Earnscliffe every time there's a heavy rain. And some of them are even being told they can't be insured. And this is happening the year that the city's getting hit with a lawsuit over the flooding. So make of it what you will. But here's something I'm working on that I found fascinating. That you can put this in the file of good intentions, the road to hell. The borough, along with the city and the province and some local organizations, thought it would be a great idea to open up a warming shelter in Côte-des-Neiges. Now that's where the multi-caf is. The multi-caf, I don't know if your viewers will probably recognize that an organization that offers day services, food bank, food baskets, meals, hot meals, laundry services, and shower hygiene services for the homeless population, particularly those who congregate, who are like domiciled at Martin Luther King Park, which we remember as Kent Park.
Right.
Now, what the Multicaf offered up its spaces across the street from the park to Prévention Côte-des-Neiges Notre-Dame-de-Grâce for this pilot project with the borough and with the CIUS to offer from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. a warm space for respite from the cold, because people can't be outside in the weather starting December 1st. It was supposed to be a 4 to 5 month project, but within 3 weeks, the director of Multicaf was regretting his decision to offer up his space because it turned into a bit of a nightmare inside and out. There were fights and fires, people fighting with broken bottles, drug use in and out. The neighbors are terrorized. Police patrols have increased exponentially. And there are people on the street who are afraid to leave their homes at night. So a fellow came to Borough Council and he pleaded with the mayor and he said, it's a zoo. I live 15 feet from a zoo. I have people in my home who are crying, who are not sleeping at night. My tenant, imagine in the worst housing crisis in modern history, he has people who don't want to renew their leases in his duplex because they
Right.
feel unsafe to live there. There are people passed out on his walk. He says the police can't do enough. There's drug paraphernalia all over his property. His fence is damaged. So,
And the
you know,
police
what
are actually sufficiently handicapped. I know it may seem like it, like, as my girlfriend works for the Native Women's Shelter, so I'm privy to a lot of information about actually managing home, not like the confidential shit, but, you know, like the top level systemic issues. And one of the problems with the homeless population is they tend to not be as white. So when the cops do get more extreme with their measures dealing with them, they often face discrimination complaints and are forced by various minority support groups to pull back because it statistically ends up spiking stats that don't really make them look good. So they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place on actually being able to intervene.
Well, there
really is a huge amount of homeless people. I see them all over begging for money at the cars lately, like at an extremely increasing rate.
To be fair, this issue that I brought up, you bring up an interesting point, but there's more to this story, and what it is I've learned that a lot of these problems are being caused by people who are not homeless, people who are just looking to party, and they know there's a willing, vulnerable population who's spending the night there, and you have people congregating, and the management knows this. You know, a lot of fingers are pointing to poor planning. The mayor, she said at council, Mayor Gracia Kasaki-Katawa of Cotonej NDG, she said she understands there's a lot of challenges and that they're going to have to completely reassess the model if they're going to bring it back next year. The opposition is saying, well, you know, some of these things could have been planned for when you rush to implement the project without thinking about some of the impact it's going to have. Now you have the local population, their buy-in is doubtful. But I mean, again, this was an idea that was a good idea and that meant well. But even the director of the establishment said, you know, this was meant to provide warmth and respite, but it ended up being violent and you know, and some other stories that I'm not going to repeat right now.
Let me just ask you this for clarification to our listeners. This facility is on Cotonej Boulevard, right?
On the corner, it's on Appleton.
It's near the Cotonej shopping center there, right? Is this
not far?
And then Max,
a block away.
It's near the intercultural library there as well, isn't it?
Around the corner, like up a block.
I know that park, and I lived in and CDN, the other part of our borough, and I lived in Lacombe. And I went back to that park when I was, believe it or not, involved in the election, because I had to put up signs and, you know, that kind of nice and fun stuff. And for the first time I had, you know, in my experience being in CDN, there were homeless people in the park.
Sure.
And that is something I did not see before, because I had done events and had hung out in that park, you know, say 8 years prior, and I never saw that stuff before.
Well, it's been common for about the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, Leonel Perez even mentioned it in the campaign that there's now a homeless issue now in that area.
Right, and it's being dealt with through, you know, the cities, you know, looking at issues of cohabitation, leaving them be, as long as, you know, they're not bothering anybody else. Nobody should bother them. Right. So there's constant, frequent visits by social workers and community agencies to see that they're okay, that the people who are living there are okay, and B, that they're aware that there's services close by and there's responses if they need it, and also to deal with any issues, because there are day camps that congregate there, lots of children around the chalet.
I think that's really interesting what you brought up, right? Because like there needs to be a solution for homelessness, because it's a lot worse for the neighborhood if there's no solution, actually, if they just let people kind of roam on their own. It's also really bad for the hospitals and our taxes, big picture, to just let homeless people pass out night after night in the cold and get sent to the ER and have to get dealt with Which is, I only know about that because I do Uber, and I one day just had a couple people just in the ER whining about this problem to me because we were like, pass by them in the streets and shit. So like there is a cost of ignoring the problem entirely. But what you brought up about people who aren't homeless leveraging the newfound trap house to do what they do, that is actually a concern that needs to be dealt with in the future.
Right.
It just also is a problem. Unfortunately, if there are homeless people, they're there. You can't just move them.
Correct.
It doesn't really work like that.
The issue goes to foresight, and a night shelter dealing with a homeless population that is often there because of issues of consumption, addiction, mental illness, lack of resources, isolation. You need more than a well-meaning social worker to manage a population like that. You need at least a security guard. And that's what would have gone a long way in preventing what's happening in terms of people congregating outside, hooking up with people inside and out. I mean, if the borough council can have a security guard stationed inside their chamber while they're discussing, sewer replacements, they can have a security guard on site
or
dealing with
maybe
this
not
vulnerable
a security
population.
guard so directly, but there are like specific types of workers who monitor these places. Like Cabot Square's got people that work there that maybe they're
Those
not
are intervention workers, absolutely.
Yeah, have them people come through because security, is going to open its. We just have somebody that is trained on how to deal with it.
But there are intervention people who are staffing this place. But the problem is someone who's trained at intervening and working with someone who's in distress or impaired is not the same as what the presence of a security guard does to people who don't belong there and who know they don't belong there. And that goes a long way in mitigating the issue that's making life a nightmare.
Are we talking the gangs? Because like high key, a lot of times in those situations, there's people who pull up and distribute. Like or is it just like people
Locals.
who have homes? Like just
people who have apartments. Yeah, people who are looking, who know they sell usually in the park during the day, and they know where their clientele is at night, and they're in and out, and there's not much they can do to keep them out.
So it's the dealers and shit.
So there's gonna be changes happening. The pilot project is wrapping up now. The issue is this permanent? Is this going to happen every year, or was this just temporary? And the mayor couldn't say because she says we have a lot to reassess. Now, there's one more factor involved here, which I'm not going to give away, but if you keep your eyes on the Suburban newspaper, you're going to see there's more to this story.
I look forward to it.
I'm saving that for those who are not too lazy to read it.
Yeah. All right.
That was one thing that happened.
That's good.
Yeah, well, good that happened, but
but
it's unfortunate that the pilot project. Yeah, it's unfortunate the pilot project has experienced some static. The homeless need support, and they need support in CD&EG as much as they need support in other parts of the city.
And it affects the day operations of the shelter as well, because they also rely on donations, and they have a reputation for what they do and how they do it, and they have to devote extra staff in the morning to clean up the mess.
Right.
So it's it feels like it was kind of rushed, but we're not going to rush to judgment.
Right.
The borough says it will reassess. It's speaking with the relevant partners, and again, we will take them at their word.
Well, something needs to be done too, because if you're someone who doesn't have a home, there's a lot of things that we take for granted in the day-to-day.
Damn right you do.
Shower, brush our teeth.
And these are the day services that are offered at Multicap. Shower installations, laundry services, meals.
And if Multicap is not going to do it, right, what happens is they invariably end up with the parks and the public bathrooms. Then the city's got to find some way of, maintaining that space. And then there's issues, right, when you're dealing with people who are experiencing homelessness. There's a lot of other societal issues tied to that. And then you have children with the parents, and
I think you can go to this debate that we've been hearing a lot, since I started covering this part of town, is the idea of implementing projects first and assessing after.
Right.
It's action now, talk about it later. And I think this is again, it's well-meaning, but this is some of the consequences.
Yeah,
So,
I don't.
I can see how like this one is kind of tricky though, because if you do nothing and you wait to plan it out, which could take a while, then you have a homeless population that is going to go through that winter, which thankfully it was a pretty mild winter, but we've seen what winter can be. And
but that's not the point, right?
Again, this, if you want to go real selfish, because a lot of people like would prefer that angle, it will affect your bottom line in taxes if people don't manage this problem in a proper way.
Well, that's on a macro level, but on a micro level, the people that live next door, not only does it affect they're watching their taxes go up, but their value of their property,
that's rough. That's rough. I feel sympathy.
But the fellow, I got to say, the fellow was he was empathetic, and he said, I know it's a difficult population. These are people in distress, but he was appealing to the decision makers. His issue is with them. Please fix this.
But it also sounds like it's not hard to fix this. Like, this sounds like I guess, security or some kind of vetting process, or, a 1-2 policy, maybe a relationship with the cops if necessary to, have a person come through.
Correct. It's been established.
And then completely solved for the most part, because then it's just, you can figure out who's homeless or not. Like, it's not that hard to have somebody who tracks this shit.
One of the local politicians told me, she said, the people who live around the park know who lives around the park. And the issue is not with them.
Right.
Because these are people who we all kind of, côtoyer, we know who's who, and everybody lives their lives the best they can without getting in each other's faces. But this is not that. So let's keep our eyes open on that, because that's
you know what this sounds like to me? This is a failure of the appreciation of Murphy's Law.
Right. Well, so when people are spending other people's money, they never appreciate Murphy's Law.
It's like what can go wrong will go wrong.
Will go wrong.
And
at the worst possible moment.
And I tell you, I follow that law to the letter.
As a contractor, you're a contractor, right?
That's correct. I'm always what's going to screw up on this job? Right. And I think that we need a little bit more of that thinking out there, and I'm not saying that in the sense that I'm trying to kibosh or prevent this project from going forward. I think it's an important project, but maybe think of the unintended consequences of what could happen, and then prepare for that. You could go and do things and then say, okay, let's see how it works out. We'll make adjustments along the way, but
haven't we had this conversation about bus lanes and bike paths?
You got to think these things through. It's like, what could go wrong, and it's important that you have people on the ground who are engaging with people who are facing the issues on a day-to-day basis, right? They know what's happening, as Holden says, what's happening on the street, right? They have the receipts. So, but going on.
If I could just
yes, please.
One more thing that happened locally at the Borough Council that I found interesting was a fellow came by and asked about if the borough would consider approving or moving forward with a plan to see more in-law suites built on properties in the borough.
Right, interesting.
To help.
What does that mean?
An in-law suite is like a small apartment, like a bachelor apartment built into an existing home, like a bungalow or a cottage,
right?
With a side entrance or around the rear to help. Basement. Yeah, to help boost the rental housing availability in the borough, help people maintain their properties.
Convert a garage into a housing space.
Yeah. Now, Despina Surias, the city councillor for Loyola, who's I believe the new executive committee member responsible for housing. Loyola, she's from Loyola. I don't think anybody on the council dais was clear on the concept, to tell you the truth.
Right.
Because he was talking about the new laws about Law 31 and the new housing rules allow for that. And there was a lot of discussion about examining the rules and seeing how we can move forward to increase density, et cetera. There was a lot of blah, blah. And everybody I know from my community who took off down the 401 to Toronto, all they talk about is the first place they went to was an in-law suite. Everybody lived in someone else's basement.
Vancouver's the same way. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe Montreal's at that point. Maybe we've hit that point. Would it happen? I don't know. Nobody seemed to be clued in on this topic, which was surprising.
In Vancouver, houses are so expensive that contractors actually like build single family homes. And what they do is they split the levels into different living spaces. And what happens is that the owner, the potential owner, buys it, lives on one level, and rents out the other level just so they can afford to live
To
there.
live
Because
there.
otherwise, they could never afford the home.
Yeah.
And this is very typical of a lot of homes in the Vancouver area.
Maybe it's
And
something needs exploring here in
yeah,
Montreal.
yeah, I think that considering the housing crunch,
And in
that could
theory,
be.
that would increase taxes because it would increase the value on all these homes, which would make everybody happy in the politics line, if I'm not mistaken. If I've learned they really like
Revenue,
housing taxes.
Maybe.
revenue,
I don't know
property
about
taxes,
that.
which yeah, well, property taxes. Don't bring up property taxes on the Trainman report.
No, don't do that.
We're better off.
That's
We're better off talking about pickles.
But on that note, in terms of like housing, the housing shortage, one of the things that I've been talking about and I've been seeing in the numbers, okay, and I won't spend a lot of time here because I know how much you guys love numbers, is that the like the number of people per household has been falling consistently, excuse me. So that means less people are living in a given space. And that's also feeding the problem. Basically, people need more space. Like, all these people working from home now, they want to have a space within the house for their home office. And I see this a lot. People are upgrading to larger homes because they want that space for that purpose. And this puts pressure on the housing stock as well. So, food for thought. So, as we move along, see you guys, I made it short. Notice that?
But
All right.
basically, from a housing point of view,
Right.
that means. Well, also, do you think that like for stuff like how the people who aren't from here are going to pay way more in university and things like that, that whole situation is going to impact the housing situation in any meaningful way?
I think so. I think there's going to be
You
less
mean you
pressure,
mean out of? I don't understand the
If I'm
less
question.
not mistaken,
international
people
students. Yeah,
like
Less
people who
international.
are
yeah.
because like
We have
people who are
Loyola.
not from here now have to pay like a crazy amount to come here. Like I had somebody in the Uber talking about how like their sibling can't afford to come to Concordia, whereas they can, and like
Where
they're
are they
gonna finish,
from?
but Ontario
So it's $3,000 more,
still $3,000 more.
I think
sixty
it's going to have an
dollars a week
impact.
more.
I don't think it's just that. I think it's a cumulative thing.
What if you can find a place to live? If you have a place to live, set up with an older sibling who's already here, you've already saved that money. So it's still worth it to come here to live in Montreal.
Okay, fair
I'm
enough.
not mad at that, but I think that people who don't have somebody already set up here are going to be impacted by that decision, and especially the international folk.
Oh, forget it.
I
So
agree with
like
Holden. I think it's going to have an impact. Yeah.
or maybe not an impact on like home owning, but at least the rental market or the temporary home market. And
Yeah,
would
for
it
sure.
like actually increase in the number of homes,
Well,
to have an impact?
Well, I don't have the numbers on how many international students there are in the city or how many would stop coming. If there's been any surveys done of it once their fees are
Oh, it's
doubled.
something like 70% reduction in applications since this has gone in.
International.
Yeah,
So that would remove. Well, we still know what the massive numbers is in terms
We
of how
don't.
that would
The
affect the
city, the
housing.
city.
But obviously, there will be student, at least where students go to live. It'll be freed up.
Yeah, the city doesn't. I don't think the city tracks that data. I've never seen that data,
right.
like for international student. What I can
Those
say
numbers
is
are there.
that.
I'll give you those next time. Those numbers are there. Those
Oh
numbers are
yeah,
there.
okay, fair enough. But what I will say is that CDNEG, when we had the introduction of a number of legislations back in the early '80s related to language and all that kind of stuff, Bill 101, all that fun stuff. That seriously impacted the population numbers of CDNG. We were
Wait,
100,
here's where Mr. Trainman starts talking about
yeah.
tax distribution.
And then so our numbers plummeted. We were 180,000 people. We went down to 160, and we're kind of recovering. We're back at 170 now, and now whoop, we have all these new laws that have come in that are targeting minorities in particular. And if people think that's not going to have an impact on CD&DG, you guys, that if you think that and you're out there and you're listening to this show, you're dreaming in Technicolor. That's all I've got to say to you. All right,
I'm gonna
moving
put money
along.
down that the people who actually listen to our show are gonna be more politically savvy. There's
Yeah,
no
I
way
would
you're
imagine.
going through the Trainman Report with
and
zero
thank-
interest in this. Is my
and-
assumption. If I'm wrong,
and
let me
thank
know in
you.
the comments.
And thank you for being you, who are listening to the show and being political savvy. That's good. That's a good thing. So
I'll talk about anything you want to talk about. Fine.
So continuing the conversation, it's in the agenda. I'm kind of fearful of touching this subject, but I wanted to talk about, there's a lot of talk and conversation in the public space right now about abuse, and in particular abuse directed towards elected officials. And just to give you a brief rundown, this is what I've identified, okay, based on my quick look at the media, news. So we had a situation where we had the mayor of Gatineau. She resigned, France Bellil. Specifically, the reason she gave for resignation was she didn't want to deal with the harassment. She says it wasn't worth it. She didn't sign up for this. And then we had, obviously, the PQ leader, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, who was threatened. There was an arrest made in that affair. Alison Haynes, the executive, column on that as well. Then, obviously, the government of Quebec has come out with $2 million pegged for elected officials to deal with mental health issues related, came out of this issue with Gatineau. And we have our own borough mayor complaining now about, which she identifies as abuse that she's experienced in dealing with the public.
She referred to it at the last meeting as violence.
Yes. I have some reservations about, some of the things that she said, or maybe the reservations I have are I guess she has her own very subjective kind of experience, and I think it kind of
doesn't everybody
kind of forgets, the larger macro picture, right? She talks about it as it impacts her, but it's out there and it impacts other people.
Well, there's an element that you missed there, because I saw one survey after Bellil made her announcement,
right,
that said that I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared. I don't have the actual survey in hand.
Fair enough.
But it was more than 50% of the reported cases of abuse reported by des élus in Quebec came from other élus, from their peers, from their council members, from their opposition, nasty emails, comments in the hallway,
right,
ginned up questions at question period, planted soldiers here and there.
Yes.
So that's important too, because it's a nasty game. And at the last council meetings, a fellow from Cote-Neige brought it up, and said that in a recent case there was a kerfuffle during one of the, I believe it may have been at the info session at the Benny Library, where one councillor allegedly got up to go to the washroom, and while I was there was a confrontation with a staffer from a local member of parliament.
Peter McQueen.
Where words were exchanged.
I was there for that, by the way.
You were at the meeting?
I was at
the bike meeting?
I was in the bathroom with Peter McQueen when they were waiting outside the bathroom for him. And I asked him, "Do you need some help?" And it's just, you want me to hang? And he said, "No,
Peter McQueen needed help."
Yeah, and he said, "No, I'm cool." And I says, "Okay, have a good day."
Okay, so there was a story about that, like what the confrontation was about. I'm not gonna get into it here because I don't have it solid.
No.
But there were allegations made about intimidation, just allegations, and all to the point that when this fellow brought it up at the last council meeting, then asked the mayor for comment, the mayor answered, "Well, there's been things coming from this way, from all different directions." That was her answer. And then she remarked on that info session at the bike meeting at Holden was at the Benny, where some people they insulted her and they yelled at her and they called her liar, and some people were being quite unruly, I gotta say, but nobody was getting up and swearing.
I feel like you should be allowed to heckle your politicians.
Hold on. Let me finish my point.
Yeah.
And so one fellow, I think the most bombastic display was one fellow who grabbed the agenda, threw it on the floor as he walked out, and slammed on the door when he left. Now she referred to that as violence.
Right.
And it was ironic because a few days earlier in her borough, 2 nights in a row, there were chants for horrific chants about certain populations outside the synagogue and the Montreal Jewish Community Campus. So the fact that she brought up this issue as violence was not lost on several people in the audience. But now, to your point, Holden, yes, about heckling, there is a long tradition of heckling those in power. Comfort the afflicted, afflict the comfortable. But public meetings have to maintain some sense of decorum because they serve a higher
think
purpose.
Like the agenda slamming, door slamming theatrics, and some of that shit could be like toned down, but
That was
you
not
don't go
violent.
in. You can't go into politics and like be surprised that the public that you're accountable to can speak to you however they
Correct.
want, especially in a country of free speech, where even if the chants are not in your favor, in theory, everything's protected under some level of free speech, because that's what we all promote.
But you have to, if you're expecting that people, again, it's context. You have to always consider context. Should the mayor of Côte-des-Neiges NDG be sitting at the table during a council meeting while people get up and start swearing at her? No, she shouldn't have to, because that runs contrary to the proper smooth functioning of civic engagement.
I
So
agree.
people should be told, these are the rules. If you don't do it, if you don't sit down and shut up, you're gone. I mean, it doesn't have to be, that soft. But listen, I remember, I'm old enough, I've been around long enough to remember only a few years ago when, Jeremy Searle strode along the back of the stage and planted a big one on Magda Papiano's cheek. And, Russell Coleman at the time, borough mayor, this was at the Benny Pool in the
Right.
gym, cleared the room and called the police to have him removed because he wouldn't leave after that. Now, he was, 15 sheets to the wind. And if you ask him why he did it, he actually told me on the side it's because he had a lot of love in his heart. And then he just started ranting about Copeman and about the Navy and Copeman's relatives. And it was just out of control.
I got to stop you, Joel. What does 15 sheets to the wind mean?
He was drunk out of his head.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, because the expression 3 sheets to the wind, so
Right,
I'm guessing
times
15 is just
I've never
extra.
heard that before. Okay, so now everybody knows.
Thank you to the 30-year-old in the room for knowing what that means.
I didn't know that. Sorry.
So it was unfortunate. Jeremy, being Jeremy, it was unfortunate.
Yeah,
but I mean,
being
you
Jeremy.
could smell the
I
alcohol.
like Jeremy, don't get me wrong.
Well, Jeremy got stuff done, eh?
Well, Jeremy got stuff done, and I respected him. I didn't like his. I have to be honest. Sometimes his eclectic style. It rubbed me the wrong way. But you know what? You have to salute his effectiveness. The Benny Sports Center would not have been there if it was not for Jeremy. A lot of people lose sight of that, but that's true. And he has said quite a few things that have been controversial, things that I would
his idea about putting bike paths on the Cary Expressway like IKEA shelves on brackets on the side of the expressway. I would
never say things that he has said, and also
we all have a Jeremy file.
And there's a time and place for things, like you said, right? You don't go to council meetings with, what is it you said again? 15 sheets in the wind?
Just soused, yeah.
Okay. Just don't be that drunk, Alex.
So
it's not St. Patrick's Day in the council meeting.
Right. That's right. But it's okay. It's St. Patrick's Day. It depends on your liver, of course. But moving along on this whole abuse issue, I have opinions on that I would like to share. I kind of find the whole conversation about abuse a little bit like, hypocritical. Colin and I had Sue Montgomery on this program and listened to the difficulty she experienced as borough mayor. And, I have in the agenda as a point, Sue Montgomery, let's all forget what happened there, right? And the city issued her damages, and there was no mention in the borough council about what Sue had to go through and suffer. And there was no kind of like acknowledgement or there wasn't any conversation whatsoever about, maybe doing an internal review of like what went wrong and how can we prove ourselves as an operation to prevent something like this happening in the past. And I'm not here to assign blame, but what happened to Sue clearly was traumatic for her. She experienced mental
And her
anguish.
chief of staff.
Yeah. And and then there's the question of activists, right? Like myself, right, who are involved in civic affairs. I've been on the receiving end of abuse. The mayor herself mocked me, in council over me calling out the fact that $500,000 was missing from the budget, and she couldn't explain why. And the whole 1.3% affair, right?
As we refer to the big Alex Montagano, Norma Ray moment.
And I was just
Where's
like,
the document?
I've experienced what I call, I believe, in my opinion, of course, harassment from the city, a variety of different ways, like bailiffs or people delivering bailiff letters to my door. As you know, I've gone to the city because they fined me for putting up signs, and it was thrown out of court. I suffered an enormous amount. I paid a large personal cost for that.
Sure. That's actually, pushing back on a gadfly, pushing back on a critic, pushing back on a citizen. But that's not coming up to your meeting and swearing at you.
Oh, I've been sweared at. I'll tell you that much.
Well, didn't something happen recently at a council meeting between you and a city staffer?
Yes.
Some kind of vulgar gesture?
They made a very vulgar gesture against me. And what am I going to do? I can't prove it was done, right? They did it in passing, and because they were upset at me because I called out some of the officials for misleading me on files, which I feel fine is inexcusable. They're public servants. That's not their job to mislead me or protect the elected officials. I really feel
depending on municipality.
Yeah, and then the whole affair with like the discrimination or the how would you say the targeting of bills, public notices that they don't like, right? Those disappear. Right. Where the ones they tolerate stick around, right? So let's just say mine disappear very, very quickly.
Well, what happened? Didn't you go to the city council this week? Were you talking about the same thing downtown? Because there was a meeting yesterday.
I didn't talk about. I didn't talk about the public notices yesterday. No.
No. But I mean, you were talking about how people. We're talking about how people are received at council.
Yeah, because I watched that clip Alex sent me of him being there, and he's directly addressing Valerie, and then they deflected to
yesterday?
some. Yeah. Just as
Valerie
an example,
Plante, mayor, Montreal.
Yeah, so he's directly addressing her, and then they're like, "We're gonna get this French dude to answer, Alex." And Alex is like, "Are you sure?"
This is the fourth time that Valerie Plante has done that to me. By the way,
here's what really struck me about that was how their answer wasn't really rational. It was, "We can legally do this via a bylaw, so we will."
Bylaws allow it.
Which, to paraphrase, is the law says we're allowed to, so we will. That's not really
Can I offer a more erudite, sophisticated translation of that?
Please.
Yeah,
That's
why does a dog lick its balls? Because it can. So
I love the speaker. The president says, "Can I suggest?" And I'm like, "You're not suggesting."
Well, no,
anything.
it's
not a suggestion.
I saw that she's being diplomatic and she's trying to handle you a bit. She's trying to manage you and say, "Let's see how it goes."
You want to. This is what you're going to do. This is.
So for viewers who don't know what happened,
yes,
Alex Montagano, who's usually a bit of a shit disturber at Côte-Neige, that's the way I see it. Côte-Neige NDG. Went downtown to ask a question about equitable distribution of public funds.
I'm going to write a book.
His question. He made the point.
That's the title. Shit disturber. Go ahead.
He made the point of saying, "I'm addressing this question to Valerie Plante." He brought up the issue of the different boroughs and their different borough taxes that were imposed to make up shortfalls, and how Valerie Plante's borough of Ville-Marie makes off like gangbusters compared to Côte-Neige, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. And then he was dutifully answered by Luc Laboin. And then right away, Alex said, I'm taking away your story. It's your story.
No, tell it. I like it better when other people tell it, because
it's interesting because often when I hear you speak in public, I think I don't support what I'm hearing, but I mean, I report on it, but I don't know if you're always right or if I feel that you're in line. But you did ask a straight question respectfully. You were articulate, and you were answered by Luc Rabouin, who basically answered your question about the unfairness of the distribution of public finances as it is. He actually said it is what it is. He said that's
Yes.
what we have. That's what we're trying to fix. It's very difficult. They've been around, what, 7 years? It's very
Yeah.
hard. It's very
6 years
hard.
at it.
And thank you for bringing it up, and we're working on it.
Well,
And then
also,
he shot it back to you.
but then like they also didn't really let Alex finish his question. Now, I don't know how much time they give you to ask a question, but Alex is asking the kind of questions, and honestly, if we're being real, the kind of tough questions you would ask a politician might take 3 minutes to answer, because you're dealing with people who are master deflectors. So unless you can already anticipate like 8 of their deflections in your question and state them as a matter of fact before you get to your question, you're not even going to have a chance at getting an answer.
But Holden, what makes it more egregious is that they know the question. Don't you file the question beforehand, like the topic of the question?
They don't. No,
You
I
don't
don't.
talk. You're not mentioning
No.
distribution of taxes.
But they know what I'm up to, because
of course they know you're
they're
because
following me. I've been to the Commission d'Action
Dude,
Internationale.
you drive up the mountain in a conductor's outfit. People know you.
And
No, but like I think
and,
that like
so
because like it's a
they're
matter of
expecting
like,
me.
but like just to kind of tie it back, like so we have a situation where I think we can clearly see how it's not really like there's not really an easy way to get answers to your questions to the city when you have valid questions, regardless of the topic. You can go to the council meetings, but you're going to probably get rebuffed. Then the other side of that creates frustration. But then to use words like abuse, just to bring it back to that, like that's a dangerous word to be throwing around willy-nilly for when there's actual situations of abuse that happens. Somebody having a grandiose fucking gesture in a public place is annoying. That's the right word for it. It's an annoying inconvenience. Like nobody, unless somebody's like directly threatening you or like harassing you on a habitual basis, or like maybe Peter McQueen can have a claim, because I have watched at least 30 people get in his face within like that close. That could be construed as abuse behavior. And like the way he handles it, he rebuffs it well. If you're talking about that, yeah, NDG can engage in some violent behavior in that regard. But a heckling crowd is just annoying. Like you go to any event, you might have to calm your crowd down. That's just part of throwing public events. Like that's just part of the territory.
But a council borough meeting is not throwing a public event. It's not a cipher. It's not a party in the park.
But it's still a collection of people in the public. It is still.
Yes, but it's an official meeting with rules and protocol, and it follows law, and it's an official meeting of record where things have to happen according to a certain order, and everything's recorded. And again, it's not a squawk box. You can't stand on a soapbox at a council meeting and say it's free speech. It's not. Just the way you can't walk into a restaurant and start singing.
What is it? Is it like a 3-minute rule for questions? Like, is there a time frame? Like, how does this actually
at city council, I think it's longer at the city council than it is at borough. But I know
it's the same thing. And the new speaker, I apologize. I didn't remember her name, but she is she just shuts you down. She's
from Park Extension.
She doesn't give you any latitude whatsoever. And this is actually a trend I've seen in Projet Montreal over the last during their mandate, their 2 mandates, because they're in a second mandate now, is they've squeezed and restricted and are trying to control the conversation much more now than they did in the past. And I see that
they are the gatekeeper to the council.
Yeah, and I see that in the borough council.
It's Martin Muelle.
With our borough council meeting, and I see that downtown as well. And in fact, this is my 3rd attempt to try to get that question to the council, because every time I go there, either it's the wrong meeting or I get there and I'm down the list and I'm not, the question period finishes before I'm able to ask my question, which I find is ridiculous. If I get in, take the metro and go downtown to ask a question, and the elected officials are basically shutting question period down because we ran out of time. No. You're paid by us, right? You sit there until you get through the list, right? And, in defense of the elected officials, there are people who are going and asking questions at council, and I really, I apologize. I probably get some blowback on this, but it's like a social for them, right? uh, and it consumes time. And, I put a lot of energy. Joel, you're out of focus again. I put a lot of energy in.
It's like the deconstructing Harry movie.
Yeah, I put a lot of energy and time in preparing my questions, and I don't go to all council meetings. I try to go to most of them, especially at the borough level. But here you are. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that, but Alex was talking.
My apologies.
But I'm going to say something. I have sympathy for our councillors and our borough mayor, right? And the reason why I have sympathy for them is because they are presiding over the most populous borough in the city, 170,000 people, give and take. And it's a borough with a lot of different needs. It's also a borough that is accepting, a large percentage of immigrants, newly arrivals that are finding their way in this country, and it's not easy. And then it's a borough of, in terms of, the social strata, classes, it's mixed. So you have people that, are well off, but you also have the majority of the population, they're working hard to make ends meet. And to add to that whole mix, right, is that the borough is given very little resources from the central city to address the needs of this community, right? I don't want to get into that, but we've already discussed that about the underfinancing of the borough. This is a stand. Right.
You're bringing up the point that you brought up at council yesterday, which you weren't answered. That was the why I brought it up. You're talking about immigration levels now. I'm talking about what happened at council.
Right. So go ahead.
I just brought it up because it was remarkable that the second time, my point, this started out as how people are received and how they engage, and I found that you repeated your question, and you asked again, can I get an answer from Ms. Valerie Plum?
Yes.
And again, Luc Rabois turned around and gave you an answer.
Right.
And then, like, the next 5 speakers in a row were addressed to anybody, and Valerie Plante got up and answered all those questions in a row.
Yeah, well, she doesn't want to answer my question.
Maybe it's your charming personality.
I think it's my charming personality. Right. Yeah, I think that she knows that I have worked diligently on this file, and she doesn't want to stand up and respond to the questions because she knows, that I'm working very, very hard to engage NDG, city NDG in a community conversation about what's our position in the city, how we're treated, the unfairness of our particular predicament, and she doesn't want to stand and answer to that. That's my take. That's my view, and she consistently avoids responding to my questions. She avoided responding to my question about official status of bilingualism in CDNG. She got Madame Olivier to respond. The last time I went to council way back during when Christian Arsenault was around and asking about the budget, she got Benoit Doré to respond to me. And then I went to her borough council meeting in Ville-Marie, and she got the civil servants to respond to me. And now I'm back downtown, and she wouldn't respond to me again. So it's because she knows I'm
feeling a little rebuffed now.
Because she knows I'm taking that video feed, right, and I'm showing people, okay, these are the questions I asked, right? These are the answers I'm getting, and she doesn't want to be on the mic giving that answer back to me.
Yeah,
she wants somebody else to. That's
arguably she's playing this very strategically from a good I want to get reelected point of view, because some of them sound bites you don't want to have existing.
Yeah, and those videos. Sorry, Holden, please. I'm sorry. I apologize. I just got to interrupt you. Those videos that I post from city halls, these are getting like 1,000, 2,000 views, right? So I'll leave it at that. Sorry, go ahead, Colin.
No, but it's Alex's question literally framed it like, hey, Valerie, you're benefiting from this current structure, and it's making your thing that you reside over
makes her life
really
easy,
good.
right?
at the cost of us. And then his second one focused on the Sud-West and pointed out how population numbers are like 10 years old and not reflective of the gentrification that's visibly happened. The fact
so
that
that borough is being rewarded for people being better off based on a formula that was calculated to reward people who are worse off.
This is what's happening.
I sell promo to restaurants for a living.
Yeah.
I can assure you that the nicest shits in that part of town right now, like some of the nicest restaurants and experiences are in the Sud-West. Like that is the popper. So like,
I gotta say this piece, Holden. Money pegged by the city of Montreal that's supposed to help vulnerable populations, right, is basically subsidizing privileged households, privileged people in Sud-West. This is what's happening right now.
En masse.
We're giving money to Sud-West for poor people, but it's being used for rich people. This is what's happening, and nobody wants to own up to it. And Project Montreal has created this whole brand about equity, fairness, social justice. It's total. When you look at the finances, the most important issue that that the city is involved with how public funds are distributed. It's total horseshit. It's not. It's not real.
I think that was a question on the poll that they commissioned about Valérie Plante about a month ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that La Presse, I think it was La Presse who broke that they got hold of part of a survey that was commissioned by Plante or her party about her popularity, and they compared her to different politicians hypothetically running for mayor of Montreal. The results aren't out yet, though, but they'll come out. Someone's going to leak them. Because Holden was talking about she's in election mode, like pre-election mode.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the election's next year, right? But in this era, you got to start planning way earlier because it's a data-centric approach now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's lining up all your ducks. The good announcements, the bad announcements.
You know what?
At least you got to make sure that you aren't caught on camera justifying why the downtown commercial sector is doing better than the poor residential sector. You just don't want to be on camera if you're Miss Social Justice in the eyes of your branding. These two things are not the best.
Skipping over the whole idea that the mayor of Montreal is the de facto mayor of Ville-Marie borough. That's a whole other issue in time. But without even getting into that. Is
that how it works? Like you gotta keep. That's one of those. I didn't know that. So just by virtue of that, by being mayor of Montreal, you automatically get that particular.
There's a story behind that. Do you want to share that story, Joel? Why it's like that?
That's a long story. We'll do that next time. That's like the whole DC statehood thing in the U.S.
Yeah, let's just say
But one interesting thing that the Chamber of Commerce of Montreal came out with their report last year about traffic and construction cones and the anarchy that's ruling the streets is that I don't have these numbers in front of me, is that the borough of Ville-Marie benefits greatly dollar-wise from the amount of public space occupied by construction sites.
Yes.
So one could arguably say the longer trucks laden with materials sit parked on a street, pyloned off and taking up half the road, the better for that borough because of the cost of the fee to do that.
Occupation de le domaine public, monsieur.
Which, as a contractor, I guess if you're bringing in a Pipin or something, you have to park it overnight. You have to pay for that, right?
Yes, you do.
So Ville-Marie, by the amount of construction going on there, and the amount of road closures in the core, they benefit from those occupancy revenues.
Like, do people have to pay fees to do that? Is what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, you're going to park your machinery.
They're expensive.
Put down your,
So to make sure that we're on the same page and that everyone's following, the city's making more money off of taxing the construction companies blocking streets than other sources. Thus, they're incentivized.
No. I didn't say that. I didn't say that they're making more money.
No.
I said that that it could be argued that they're benefiting because there's just so much, and I'll bring those numbers next time around.
They are benefiting.
I don't have
but let me
wait.
Hold on.
Like the destruction of the stores and things along those lines, like St. Catherine's a nightmare right now.
Well, businesses are suffering big time downtown. Now, ultimately, again, people can look to the future and say, "Oh, we're going to have these wide promenades, and it's going to make it nicer, and the whole downtown core will be a quartier de spectacle." How wonderful! But ultimately, we'll see when it happens, when the construction stops.
I have a point. I have a point to make
I will
about.
say that the merchants I've talked to in Verdun love the way that they've turned Verdun into like street festivals with no cars and stuff. Like apparently it's really positively impactful.
And there's it happened on Mount Royal too.
In theory, and same thing, Saint Denis, like, say what you will, but when Saint Denis pedestrian mode, those businesses make bank.
Mount Royal, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Take your kids. It's a way to enjoy the city.
It's proper.
Sorry, are we keeping you out of this, Mr. Trainman?
Yes, you are.
Apologize.
I wanted to go back on the funds that Ville-Marie collects from Occupation de Domaine Public. There's another point or nuance that I think is being missed in this conversation, is that in Ville-Marie, like 47% of the properties are commercial. They're not residential, right? So Ville-Marie, right, because of the sole fact that it has all this commercial property on
which is taxed at a higher rate.
But they have the permis d'occupation for these buildings. The fees go to the borough of Ville-Marie, and they're for local needs. Okay, so it's not going to the central city and is being distributed to everybody. Ville-Marie keeps all that stuff.
So
right?
the geographical center city collects money for the political center city.
Exactly. So this is like, remember my conversation last night? I was talking about like how Ville-Marie uses its, richesse foncière to basically cook the books, right? They have this thing too that's happening as well. The fact is that they have all these revenues coming in from permis d'occupation, and that's going for local needs. It's not going to the central city for like the needs of the city as a total. It's being kept by them. And the city kind of addressed the issue with the permits, because what was happening before is that the boroughs would keep all the fees from the permits, construction permits, right? And the boroughs complain and say, well, that's no fair, because Ville-Marie and Côte-des-Neiges too, because we got a whack load of money with, the super hospital that went up and all this stuff. People were complaining that, Sud-Ouest is making a fortune and Côte-des-Neiges to a lesser degree, and Ville-Marie are making a fortune off these permit revenues. So now they're distributing them equally now to all the boroughs, right, to kind of address that. So, there is conversations happening downtown, but what I see is there's this, Project Montreal knew about this problem when they got into office. They complained about it before they got in office, and now they're in office, and all they're doing is perpetuating it. They're not fixing it.
Isn't that what Trudeau did about voting? About the, changing the voting rights?
Isn't that what politicians do about politics?
I find it extremely infuriating and frustrating, because I know Magda Popianu, I know Peter McQueen, and now we have a borough mayor that, I really feel does not really understand what's really happening. I think there's a real high level financial literacy that's happening in our borough council. Peter McQueen I asked him in council about this accelerator for that's in the formula for vulnerable populations, and he didn't understand how it worked. He admitted that, and he's been in office for how long? 15 years. I don't get it. Not
to make a facetious point about it, but I will. Like, are you at least happy he admitted he didn't know it?
I am happy, yeah, but it surprises me. It's just I can't believe it.
Surprise!
I'm like I guess I completely overestimated their understanding of how this formula works, and how it's pumping out these numbers.
I would imagine that the way that they're managed is siloed as like politicians. Like they clearly give
I think this is happening.
Elected officials specific roles and responsibilities, and I'm getting the feeling like it's a stay in your lane culture. If you're the housing person, do housing. Don't ask questions about other shit. I mean, I could be wrong.
Well, I would take that explanation. And I would extend it to not just between politicians, but division between politicians and bureaucracy.
Yeah, and
those questions are handed off to the employees of the city.
And the party dynamics in the city of Montreal just aggravates the situation, right? Because quite frankly, if you want to be a politician, you want to have a council seat, then you've got to like pony up to some party. So you got to follow the party line, because if you don't, they won't because if you want to run an office, Valerie Plante has to sign your nomination papers. I know this.
Yeah, like if I want to be part of the pickle party,
right?
I got to toe the line.
That's right. You better hate pickles.
Right. You can't be pro.
I can't be growing cucumbers.
Or Holden won't sign your papers.
No, cucumbers are fine. You just can't pickle them.
I can't pickle them. I can't get them 15 sheets to the wind.
And we're one of the only few cities in North America that has this party system at the municipal level, and I feel that robs us of quality local representation. So
I think
there's
we're
my
also
feedback.
one of the. We also have a very convoluted city politically, with like 19 independent cities that then need their own separate council to manage their needs
Something they
relative to.
lose. How
It's
many
a
do we have?
mess.
50 something.
19. I
Is it
looked it up
19
recently
boroughs?
for
No,
one
but
of
how
my
many?
blogs.
Like how many
It's
elected
it's
officials?
19 city
Council.
mayors across
Not
Montreal,
19
including.
boroughs and a
No,
city council.
so it's like there's like the 18 non-Montreal independent borough city things that have their own mayor.
No. The city of Montreal has 19 boroughs. Each borough has a borough council,
Borough mayor.
borough
Yeah.
mayor,
But then,
and
like, so
either
where does
city
Côte Saint-Luc
councilors
fit
or a
into
mix
that?
of borough and city councilors.
Yeah.
Right, but then you have like the Côte Saint-Lucs, which are
The
sort of not
demerged cities,
Montreal.
the
Yeah,
island
that's what I'm
cities.
saying.
Côte
So then
Saint-Luc,
that's like
EDO, Hampstead,
added
Westmount,
into the
TMR.
mix because they share resources with the Montreal city, but they're also on their own council, which I learned recently they don't have no real representation on.
Well,
They're just on a council.
so here's a little bit for you. So the Association of Suburban Municipalities, my colleague at the Suburban, Joel Goldenberg, has been like the only person who's been all over this forever. Um, the formula in which those demerged cities, those independent cities get pay and receive services for fire, police, water, those shared services with the rest of the island, they are getting screwed.
And
They are getting screwed. And the city of Montreal controls the agglomeration, and yet they all have to be members of the agglomeration. And now they're saying out loud that they may be thinking about legal avenues. They may think about withholding payments. They're having discussions like this, like they're coming to a showdown on this. Like this is going to happen sooner than later. I know George Burrell. I think George Burrell in Beaconsfield is pursuing his own action against the Aglo, because Valerie Plante is the chair of that group, and the city is overrepresented in that group, and they decide how much Baie-D'Urfé gets for policing.
87% of voting power, despite the number of people on the council. There are 13 people representing the city on said council, and that represents 87% of the voting power based on how they've decided the distribution goes. I was just all over that wiki page.
That's great math, man. It's been acknowledged that the formula is skewed, and this is another one of those things, as you were told last night, with not much degree of eloquency, that like it is what it is. We're working on it, but they also said the city acknowledged that they're working on it.
Yeah, that's the first time I actually. You know what? I guess that's a little victory there. That.
Well, it's not a victory because nothing happened yet.
But it's an acknowledgement. It's an acknowledgement that it's a problem, and I haven't really.
But it's an acknowledgement, just the way they acknowledge to you that there's a problem. But well, it is what it is.
Yeah, but at least now they're saying there's a problem, because I'm not getting that answer from our borough council. Our borough council says, "Oh, it's a great budget. The budget's great. We're voting for it. We're in favor of it." And
they don't have
amazing.
A choice, though.
I think the majority say that. Majority say that.
Like we can acknowledge that the Projet Montréal dominated local city folk are not going to go against the party.
Well, neither did Ensemble Montréal, wherever they are in charge. I mean, it's fair game.
Yeah,
parties are parties.
That's the party system.
I'm just like, I'm not surprised. People get mad at that a lot. I mean, I do think it's corny, but that is just how Canadian politics works at every level.
No, that's not true. That's how Montreal city politics works.
Party politics.
Montreal,
because I was like, I'm pretty sure federally the same thing goes down. Like,
but this is not federal. This is the city.
Again, but it's part again. Montreal, the Montreal experience with the party. The depth, the reach of party politics in Montreal is not a normal thing. Like it's not common elsewhere. Like it doesn't happen.
No.
So there's more people who are free to speak on their own. There's a more deal making.
Yes.
Small victories. It's not us versus them all the time on every issue.
Henry Aubin, on old, he's no longer there. He
great writer.
An amazing columnist for the Gazette. Yeah. This was a man of letters, really well read, really well educated. He harped on that consistently. How party politics is like contorting and like
Well,
it's
it's
almost
toxic.
yeah, it's creating this environment where you have elected officials who are essentially not representing their constituents. They're representing the political party, and we're all paying for that, and especially in
Well,
CDNDG.
it's always the same old question. Are you the district's representative in the seat of power, or are you the party's representative in the district? A quick segue. I met up with I don't have his name, the former Communist Party candidate in the NDG by-election,
Mm-hmm.
the federal by-election, and it
Yes,
reminded me about
he's
the
actually a
only town
real
hall.
conductor. But go
He's
ahead.
actually a conductor for CN, an actual train conductor. I saw him last weekend, and we were talking, and it reminded me about the only town hall that took place in Westmount NDG during the Westmount NDG by-election, and it
That's
was
right.
held by the NDG Community Council, a legitimate, respected, established community organization. Had what, like 10 candidates there? The only the conservatives were missing, but they didn't stand a chance. But the
Right.
shoo-in, the liberal,
Right.
Anagani,
Right.
was a no-show
Yeah.
at the only town hall debate community conversation. She did not show up to the only event by one of the most legitimate local organizations. And then the scuttlebutt afterwards was she was actually at a fundraising event for a political
Yeah, sure she
chum.
was. Sure she
No,
was.
that's where that's apparently where she was. Now that it could be
Apparently.
wrong, but I mean I have it on a number of sources. That said,
We all
that,
have our
that
priorities.
right. That said, it brings me to the question: are you the district's representative in the seat of power, meaning Parliament, or are you the Liberal Party's, the man in NDG? That's who we're gonna you take care of.
Are you asking me
How's
that
it?
question?
Well, that's
No,
the
but
question.
but even federally, they've shuffled people after they get elected. Like they've taken people who've got elected in one riding and moved them to another riding. So therefore, your election
Oh, you have to
is
get
like
elected.
You can't do
get elected. You
that.
have to run.
I think you mean
no.
they're
But if you
shuffling
get
the
elected
positions.
in the riding after they've been like I've seen that happen where like you're representing one area and then you get elected and then shuffling happens and they rearrange shit.
No, yeah, but you don't represent a different area, but you might get a different portfolio of responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
you're still supposed to be there. Your power comes from being duly elected in Westmount NDG or in Mount Royal riding or in Pierrefonds Dollard. That's where your power comes from. But
Right.
once you're elected, do you represent Pierrefonds Dollard in Ottawa, or are you representing the Liberal Party in Pierrefonds Dollard?
I can assure
You
you
ask
that
people
most
in
of us
Pierrefonds
are
Dollard,
under the impression nobody really believes that the party politicians are representing the people in their constitution. I don't think I've ever met a person who believes that.
But we vote for it.
But because
But
we
yet
think certain
people play
parties,
along.
but because I mean, this is like that bigger issue of why we needed electoral reform in the first place, because with the current first past the post situation, it ends up being which party do you think best aligns with your shit, because otherwise you're wasting votes. And I've watched a ton of YouTubers break down all the sciences and different ways of voting that could exist, and you look at how other
You don't
countries
need to watch
manage
a shitload of YouTubers holding. Look for this guy. The first time I heard of Alex Montagano was when I saw he did this thing was it with Legos? I think you
Yes.
froze. Yeah, he did this thing with Legos
I
about.
remember that. Yes.
He demonstrated. It was like that Nabob coffee commercial with the beans. He laid out all these represent this many people in Cote-Neige, and this is how many votes you need. It comes all you need is a guy who's good with numbers, and there's your plan.
Right.
No,
doesn't matter what you're preaching.
This dude CP Gray has really good videos on the topic using animal kingdoms. It's like freaking idiot proof.
Very apt.
I have this to say about electoral reform. Right? I'm an old, jaded man, and the people who are going to design and pass or implement electoral reform are the people who are currently benefiting from the existing system as it functions. And I suspect that any electoral reform that we experience or see in Canada is going to continue to benefit them in the way that they want. And it's like having the fox. It's like asking the fox, right, to like patch the hole
Guard the hen house.
and the house, right? It's not going to happen. And how is that going to happen? I don't know. I'm a member of they seem really highly organized, and they've actually called me personally a couple of times. and they've asked me to
A
like
member of
reach.
what?
Yeah, you didn't say who you're a member of.
It's the Canadian Alliance. I gotta look it up. Canadian Alliance for they just sent me an email recently for proportional
Okay.
representation or electoral reform. Okay, so they exist. And they're working hard. They really are. They're organized. I don't know where they're getting their money from. That's always a question I ask. But they're working hard to make change to the Canadian electoral system. They really are. And I tip my hat to them. And when I ran in the by-election, I basically said, "Oh, I like this." I cut it and pasted their program from the website. Said, "This is my program on electoral reform." So I own that. I admit that. And
Well, if
I'm sure
if
you're
you
not the
support
first
it, if it
person to
articulates your point
completely.
of view.
what's that?
You're not the first person to do that, Alex.
I'm sure I'm not. No, but it's important for me to give credit where it's due. Yes, Joel, you said something?
Well, no, it's a perfectly legitimate position. I mean, if that 100% articulates your position, then
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
But
I
that's what
complete.
organizations like that are for, to influence conversations and policy and put forth
That's right.
ideas.
That's
And if you
right.
have an idea, shove it up.
But I like very much oh, we have a cat sighting. And very
Yeah.
much in no, it's
Oh, yours.
Holden. Like very much my frustration I have with the city related to like creating an equitable and fair taxation system and a fair distribution of resources. That frustration exists at the federal level related to electoral form. And when it comes to our electoral system in Canada, we are dinosaurs. It's like
Mhm.
if you look towards, even Latin American countries, they have runoffs and all this kind of stuff, right? To make it more like reflective of the will of the people rather than, the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, and
And
here, you can have a leader of a party, like the prime minister can say, no, you're not running there, you're not running there, you're not
yeah,
running there, you're not. I can put anybody I want in, and that's the way
yes, you
to, like,
can.
to
Yeah,
override a local riding association.
you can. And Justin
He
Trudeau's done
has,
that, right?
of course.
And it's unfortunate. And what also, I guess I'll conclude on I studied political science. I took civics 101, and
Mm,
I feel that they're not teaching kids or young, basic concepts of living in an open, free, democratic society and what that entails. And I see this in our own civil servants.
right.
And it just shocks me. And what am I supposed to do, right? I love you. I love you all. um,
Drink
uh,
more.
just really, I think I gotta self-medicate.
Right.
And yeah, so I'm more relaxed after my vacation, as you can see.
Right. Right.
But Joel,
Well, next council meeting though, there'll be a fun. I believe there. I mean, it's early.
I
It's
have my questions already lined up, by the way.
but I feel that the issue of Barrette is coming up at the next council meeting because they're
Yeah,
planning to make Barrette one way west of
right,
McCarry to deal with
right.
that.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
so that's gonna.
That's going to
It's
be
not actually coming
explosive.
up to a vote. It's going to be introduced as a discussion. There's going to be a public information meeting as well about that.
That'll be explosive like my
That'll be.
diarrhea in Mexico.
Well,
Okay.
I think maybe Holden can make some merch out of that rice guy of yours.
I'm
We'll
just
call him
saying that was something.
Montezuma, the Montezuma special. That's I can't believe I brought that up.
Oh my
Um,
God. I'm gonna break something.
Break.
And Joel, again, I think we should bring this to a conclusion. Joel, again, I want to thank again you. I'm gonna
Hey,
be
you're welcome. It's fun.
I'm gonna be presumptuous and say from the people of CDNDG for
Yeah,
continuing
like
to
nobody
cover.
gives a shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I give a
Listen,
shit.
you know what?
A lot of
Listen,
people give a
I have
shit.
a rule that
Right.
I have a rule.
You gotta let me blow smoke up your ass a little bit here, Joel. Stop!
Okay,
You're
hang on.
interrupting me. Go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead. Yes, you have a rule.
I just have a rule. I'll talk
Yes.
to anybody about anything. You bullshit me, I'm not interested. It never happens again. That's all. That's basically it.
Fair enough. You give me a hard time. I deserve it. And
Sometimes you do, yeah.
yes, and I want to thank you again for coming here and being a regular guest and giving us an update. And
Before
I
we
hope.
go though, I wanna there's been a lot of protesting and shit going on
Oh,
in
we're gonna
NDG.
talk about that, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. That shit was
I
in
want to
my
go
May.
hide. Okay, all
Nah,
right. You want to talk about that? Do you want to
yeah,
talk about that, Joel?
absolutely.
All
Talk about
right.
anything you want.
I wasn't
I
here
mean,
for
I'm
this.
just
I don't know
like,
what this is all about, so I'm just
all
gonna
I
sit
know
back
is
here and
I was
listen.
sitting in my apartment, minding my own business, and we could hear chanting. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's different.
Pig goals.
Because
Pig
I'm in
goals.
Fielding and Rosedale and stuff, so you're not used to hearing lots of loud chanting going on in this part of town.
Right.
So
Yeah,
even walking over,
that was tiny. That was tiny. Tiny
it was
compared to
super
what
tiny.
happened 2 weeks
No, I don't know
ago
what
at
else
the
happened.
Federation Building and at the Spanish Portuguese Synagogue.
I do know that what happened there got conflated with what happened on Rosedale, and people were definitely mixing up the groups behind these things. Because this one was on Rosedale. My understanding is the synagogue there invited a dude
It
from the
was the
IDF
exact
down.
same group. It was the exact same group, just a
Was it
lot less. All three events were the exact same group.
the Jewish people that were against the?
No, they promoted as the Jewish people being against it because that's the safest way. Listen, that was very small what happened in NDG, but in Snowdon, in front of the Spanish Portuguese, there was a 5-hour demonstration. I was there for the full 5 hours. I saw it. I watched it second by second. 250 people on one side, about 100 on the other, about 70 cops.
That's a lot of
Nothing.
cops.
That is a lot of cops because the night before, 2 blocks away, a mob surrounded the main building of the Federation of the Jewish Community Campus and blocked
Right.
people from getting in and from leaving, like barricading the doors from the outside. And then
Right.
when counter protesters came, the police came and created a line to keep the counter protesters like away, while the people who kept people like barricaded inside the building, which actually Mayor Katawa brought up at City Council last night. She was very disturbed by that. She said she hopes she never sees it again, which is interesting because here she is. She's the mayor of Côte-Neige, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce. There have been 3 of these events targeting institutions in her district, in her borough. And she said she was very disappointed and she hopes she doesn't see it happen again. And yet, she referred to somebody mouthing off at a council meeting as violence. So,
Fair. Were they legal protests?
well, they were legal, but now they come with rules because they've been served with a court order by Quebec courts to keep a certain distance from a number of institutions, and that's until I believe
Like
it's
this
until
particular group got hit with a court order?
there's 4 or 5 groups, organizers, and one individual who were hit with. They were served by bailiff at the end of the second demonstration outside the Spanish Portuguese,
Right.
and that's when the chants went from dismantle the occupiers and you're all a bunch of genociders and wipe your asses with your keepas. It went all from that to SPVM KKK. So the chant changed once they got hit with the court order, but then they dispersed and everybody went back to the metro. And it's.
So, like, I guess the question is, because when I saw this, I took a couple of pictures, posted it on Thrive, and holy shit, that post exploded. It went in all the directions of everybody having opinions.
Yeah.
I mean, my post never exploded like that. It was so bad they deleted my post. I was like, fair enough. There was definitely hate and vitriol taking place in these comment sections. Like a couple of very passionate people on both sides came through, but it got me just thinking because a lot of people who arguably have Jewish last names seem to be of the mind that these protests should not be allowed. And they were really trying to block it, which I thought was a dangerous precedent to set. I mean, I'm not saying that people should be allowed to block buildings and completely disrupt people's lives, but protests should be allowed.
There's a big difference between protesting and mobbing a building.
Facts. Like what I saw in Rosedale was protesting.
Rosedale was protesting. They were far away. Listen, it's not going to happen again what happened at Federation. The police admitted that they failed. They admitted. They knew they blew it. They screwed it up. It was a fuck-up of massive proportions on behalf of the SPVM in Côte-Neige, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, and they admitted it. And they apologized for it. And they promised to do better. And now the court has issued an order about I think 8 or 9 different institutions where they have to keep a certain distance because, of course, a protest should be allowed as long as it's not impeding other. It's okay to make you feel uncomfortable or weird, but to make you fearful or to impede passage of people to their homes, to set off smoke bombs, to chant some horrible things. They had about 20.
They set
The
off
Spanish.
smoke bombs?
Yeah. Just to red and green smoke for atmosphere. So
That seems like a little not good. Seems like I
well,
wouldn't
listen,
set off smoke bombs.
nobody was harmed by it, but again, it's to induce fear. It's to create, there's a difference between the Holden protesting. This is what you want. This is what you want to see. This is what you're protesting against. Again, and mobbing a building, preventing people from leaving a building or entering. Number one, and number two, again, for whatever reason, targeting a religious or community institution. How would you feel if 300 people showed up in front of a church during services, whatever was going on inside, and brought in a generator and a PA system and started chanting for 5 hours outside? Now, should they be kept a certain distance away to do it? Seems reasonable.
Yeah.
What about
I'm not
all the
mad at that.
apartment buildings around the area where kids are doing homework and going to sleep? Again, these are issues that have to be addressed. They can't just be left organically because we have rights to do it. You have if things aren't set in guidelines with direction and with contingencies for emergencies and for safety of the greater community, then there is no freedom. I'm not saying crack down. I'm saying you can't just say, yeah, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to come stand outside your basement with a bullhorn and start chanting vulgar slogans in 3 languages while you're trying to sleep. It's free speech, man. It doesn't work that way. No matter how much you try to convert this city into something that does work that way.
No, I'm not saying that
Easy.
protests should be completely without limits, but they are supposed to be inconvenient to the people.
Sure.
So to that effect, 5 hours of making noise is allowed, in my opinion. But my understanding is in Montreal, you have to have a start and end point, and you have to have a clear.
Tell them where you're going. Right.
And so if you do all that and your shit's 5 hours, you respect your 5 hours and dip. Go for it. To me,
I think that was thrown out of the courts, though. You don't have to give an itinerary anymore.
You don't?
No.
You don't have to say where you're going?
No, it was ruled.
I don't think
it was ruled unconstitutional.
I don't think you can just pull up at an intersection and plant some pylons and pull out a speaker and just stop and block traffic and just.
I can't comment on that.
They do it in Toronto.
I believe that.
It's because you used to be allowed to, and then the whole Red Square thing happened, and then they changed all the rules. Arguably, that was an effective protest, although a lot of chaos, but they won, so fair enough. And then since then, my understanding was you needed to provide the planned routes, and it may have been challenged, but I don't know that I've ever heard that it's changed to that point.
I remember what being challenged was wearing a mask.
That was overturned.
Right.
Because the courts ruled, they argued that some people want to attend protests and don't want to be identified. Because of their work or whatever the case.
Right, but see, I have an issue with that.
Yeah.
If you're out, it's like there's people.
Sorry, Joe, I'm gonna just put the brakes.
Yeah,
it was
sure.
The case surrounded a panda mascot.
Yeah, the prof there from U of M or from.
Go ahead now, please. Sorry about that.
What's it? A narco panda.
Yes, narco panda. Right. I guess that's what he called himself. Yes.
But that was an exceptional case that whole season where you had I remember SQ cops in front of CEGEPs outside in the boonies, wherever, on a megaphone telling disperse now or the following will happen, because they were protesting, they were demonstrating illegally, and he would read off a clipboard. This will go on your record. You'll have trouble applying for jobs. He had to explain baby steps, explaining.
Right.
Back to Holden's earlier point about how police are hamstrung on so many issues. But back to this, I've been at many events outdoors where I've pulled out my camera or phone to take a photo of somebody, not for curiosity, but because I'm reporting on something, and I take the photo, and people ask, no, don't take my photo. And I say, well, first of all, I can take your photo. You're in a public space. You're engaged in an activity in a public space with zero expectation of privacy. And if you're at a protest, if you're chanting and screaming and chanting into megaphones and bullhorns and chanting slogans and jumping up and down, and you're wearing a mask, and you still don't want to be baloney.
Yeah,
mean, I
but
think
You
the
can't have
photography
all that. You
laws,
can't
like
enjoy all those protections.
I can appreciate what you're saying, and I really do. But I'm trying to view this from, say if you're somebody who believes in the cause.
Yep.
Let's not say whatever it is, right? It could be any
Right.
cause,
Right.
and you want to support that cause,
Right.
but you work for an employer, right?
Right.
Who is,
Right.
does not share
Right.
you say if you work for a small business and you have a boss who does
I
not
I
share
hear you.
your
Sure.
opinion on the subject, right?
Prejudice your career.
Yeah,
Sure.
and so, but you have a legitimate right to protest against that, and your ability to protest against it is being impeded because you're afraid that you'll be identified
It's
and you'll
being
lose your
impeded.
job.
Your ability is impeded by your fear, not by your employer. It's by your
Exactly,
fear of what might happen to your employer.
exactly. But that's a
Right.
genuine fear. A lot of people have that fear,
Right.
and
So
now
then maybe the attention
now,
should be paid to employers who intimidate their employees over their political
yeah,
choices.
that will never
Not,
happen. And
well,
then,
mm,
and then Facebook,
like
just so
high
I can
key. That's
please,
I'm with
please.
Alex on that. That's a lot.
In Facebook now in groups, right? You can post anonymously. The
right,
admins can see who you are, right?
right,
But Facebook allowed this feature because a lot of people were not engaging in Facebook groups because they thought they'd be ostracized for
right.
whatever they thought.
And
So
for good reason, you see what happens.
I'm kind
Right.
of like, I don't know
No,
on
I get
that.
it. No, I totally get it. But
I'm
again,
kind of
but
like
then again,
yeah,
so you can't expect. Wait. The nature of a protest is its public
yes.
nature.
Hmm.
That you're
Right.
not sitting at home writing a strongly worded email. You're going out in the street and you're fucking chanting, or you're obstructing traffic, or you're waving a banner or a rag or whatever it is you're
Right.
waving.
I would think an email is more public than a protest, especially if you're sending it in public space. But go on, I'm listening. Yes.
Hold
I
on.
mean,
Right. I'm
You
holding.
super
got up,
different things.
you got on the bus, you went downtown, you
Yes.
stapled your banner to your post,
Yes.
you practiced your lines,
Yes.
you practiced the choreography from the guy with
Okay.
the microphone. You
It's
got it
never
all
that well.
figured out.
It's never well that well organized. But go on,
You
I'm listening.
you didn't see the last three in Cotonage
Okay.
NDG,
Fair
my
enough.
friend. Good
Fair
point.
enough. Go
So
ahead.
so so when that happens,
Hmm.
you are endeavoring to put yourself in the public domain. You are inviting attention. You are asking for attention. Now, to tell me that I shouldn't take your photo, that's baloney. But the issue of whether or not you should wear a mask, I think does not go to intimidating people over political speech. It's directly over possibility of vandalism, which is also a real fear for the community, from the collective.
Right. And
That's the issue.
I
The
get
issue is
that.
not that police or the decision makers are concerned that, oh, it might be Holden telling us to go fuck ourselves. No, it's
Right.
the fear that if he decides on his way home to kick in a few windshields, we won't know who it is.
Yeah, but you could hide your face, right, and not go to a protest and do that anyway, right? So,
Especially wear
uh,
COVID masks these days. It's
so
scary.
yeah,
There's a number of things you can put on.
I'm
can't.
gonna go with fashion literally has masks
So
for
I'm
like you
conflicted
can
by
get a
that.
designer mask
Yeah.
at this point to hide your
Yeah.
face.
So
Like
again,
we've
I'm very conflicted. And then what I see a lot, and Holden and Joel, I'm guessing that I'm assuming you agree with me, is that I see a lot of feebleness and apathy out there, and Canadians, we have kind of this like tradition or this culture of like in good if for good government and order, right? And I see a lot of like people are squeamish and fearful
Sure.
of being out there in the public eye and
Sure.
making a stand or making their position known for a variety of different
Like
reasons.
Holden said, being not only making people uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable.
Yeah, so sure, if someone's wearing a mask and commits violence or says something that's hateful, like a hate crime, like calling like I don't want to say any shit, okay? Because I really don't
it's
want to
not
say that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And
people
yeah,
understand what hate crimes are.
yeah, they should be apprehended and they should be arrested. I know
Let,
it's not
let- let-
easy,
let- let me ask
but
you a question. You know,
again, I'm conflicted, and I want to say something though. I am very concerned for the community as a whole, um, about the tension and the divisions internationally that are being expressed on the local level. And I think what I want to say, which is important, is that we all live together here in peace. We all like each
Evidently
other.
not.
Huh?
Evidently not.
I think these people are exceptions, and for my own sanity, I have to believe that. Okay. And I
Well,
say
it's a nice idea to aspire to. Yes,
yes, and
certainly.
I'd
Well,
rather
I mean,
aspire to that than the other, okay, the other
And the alternative.
aspiration that people
Sure.
here will want to kill each other if it wasn't for law and order and the police were driving
like
around in
when
the
y'all were
cars.
young, was there not a bunch of passionate students out there arguing with the world? And
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I would assume that back in the day there would be equally as much people with, especially in the
Yeah, but the
student
way
world.
things move and the speed at which they move and the intensity in which they have impact is different now because of social media and because for the ability, remember the old saw about
Well, they used to burn
a
down the
lie, a
city. They
lie
burned that.
can circle the world before you get
I
out
don't
of
know
bed
if
or
I
something.
believe that, Joel, because they burned down the city hall in protest in many moons ago. We don't do that shit
Right,
anymore, right?
right.
So
Well,
I like.
a lot of, there's difference between protesting and demonstrations designed to instill fear
I
and
agree.
intimidation.
I
So,
agree.
just quick on the mask thing. If you're operating a depanneur at two
Right?
o'clock in the morning, would you feel comfortable with telling a store owner that they're allowed to tell people to take off their face coverings if they're coming into the store? Like if their face is completely covered, they're wearing a balaclava, like black
Well,
style.
I
Would they
I
be allowed to tell people to take
I
off?
think that if I had a depanneur and you see this a lot and it's open in that hour,
Mhm.
the guy behind the cashier has a buzzer that he can buzz people into the store,
Right. No,
right?
he
Eh,
will not
eh,
admit. So he has the right to not admit you
He
unless you're
does, yeah,
wearing a
but it's
mask.
not a public
De
space. It's a
facto,
private space, right? It
right.
belongs to him. It's his store,
Right.
right? I don't think
Right.
that's a good analogy.
Okay, hold on. It's not the question of whether he has the right to do it. The
Okay,
question
fair
is,
enough.
do you fault him for wanting to do it? Like, do you feel that it's okay
No,
that he asked somebody to take it off?
no. If the guy goes in the speakerphone and says, "Look, it's late at night. I'm by myself. I fear for my safety, and I can't let you in when you have a mask. I need
Right.
to
I need
see
the
who you
camera to
are."
see you. Right.
Exactly. I think that's a reasonable request. Yeah.
Or if you're in a taxi.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable request.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I,
if when the space is reduced, it's a reasonable request. But if they're out in the open, it's not a
no,
reasonable
it's
request.
private space and it's public space. It's
Yeah,
different. It's not
I
the
would
same
I
thing.
would say there is a difference between private and
Sure, there's a
public.
difference. Sure.
But like,
And my point has nothing
I
to
also
do
think
with
like there's a difference between people pulling up masked at a protest. It also depends the protest. Like take the fuck the police protest every year. That's one I'd go masked up to. I'm not trying to have all the cops see my face at the fuck the police protest. That's a matter of Holden safety. I don't give a shit how cowardly that might come off. And I think that there's context to it. And some of these protests are valid. Like, I don't know. I know people whose parents have been killed by the SPVM on some racist shit. So there's validity for this in a city that doesn't want to take accountability for racist actions. And there's just other protests where, like, maybe I like, if it's some Greta Thunberg environment stuff, I don't care if my face is out because, like, it's a different kind of demonstration. But if I am politically active and it is a more controversial topic, there is real social ramifications in this world because people will actively try to get you fired and things like that. It creates a different reality for protesting. I think that people who act out and get
But
wild
isn't it
out
interesting?
is
Isn't it
different.
interesting that people who if you and rightly say that protests are designed by nature by definition to make people uncomfortable, yet you're trying to minimize your own discomfort while doing it as much as possible.
I think that it got
Same way
weaponized
that
along
people
the
on a
way.
street, when they see 300 people chanting on their front lawn, they would probably want to minimize that too, the best they can.
Totally
Maybe a
fair.
all
I mean,
right.
it's also like it's complicated
It's
because like there is just protests, and I think the issue is it's hard to draw a line as to what is a just protest and what is necessarily not. But like there is over the course of our culture valid protests that have happened that have led to social change. So it's part of our culture and our understanding that this is something that you're legally supposed to do.
Right, but again, it depends. That's fine. That's fine, but it also depends a lot. Like, there's no straw man here. I don't see who's saying take away the rights. There are people who are
No,
saying on
and
debates on
as far
social
as I
media
was just kind
they
of
shouldn't be
commenting on
allowed
the
to
mask
protest that
part.
close.
okay,
It's the
guys.
same. It's the same as a community deciding not to open up a pot store within a certain amount of meters of an elementary school. It's a legitimate request and demand from a community to determine the functioning of its citizens and of its commerce and of its the circulation and traffic. And why are you holding up papers?
Because
Are
we
we
need to
at
get
time?
to the next agenda item, which is
Which
a group hug.
Group hug.
Here we go, guys.
Was that figurative? Hey,
No,
listen, I don't know. Have you
it's
rid
in the
yourself
agenda.
of your
It's in-
Mexican souvenirs like before I hug you?
It's in the agenda I sent you, Joel. You're already aware of this. So, Joel, I love you. I'm hugging you, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Holden, where's my hugs? I want a hug too. Where's my hug?
Hug is in.
Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Again, peace and love always.
We're at
Okay.
one way next month.
Yes, sir.
If you'll
Holden,
have me back.
Holden, thank you so much for being a host. I hope one day you get over your hatred of pickles. It's terrible, but
Yeah,
I don't know
like
about
free the
that.
pickle, man.
we're living with.
I'm not sure we're gonna do that. I'm
Free the
making
pickle.
a lot more money off of hating pickles than I will off of loving pickles.
He's
Once
like
it
a
becomes
demagogue.
capitalist. It's just
He's like the
how I-
worst kind of like leader.
Well, I mean,
Joel.
this whole pickle thing is what it is.
And the
It's like
hate.
you're either
Stop the
you're either
hate.
involved, you either get it. Look, if you don't like pickles, you get where I'm
It's
coming
funny.
from.
I know a guy
Because
who
people
eats
who
garden,
don't like
he-
pickles
the idea of a
get
pickle, he gets.
bullied by their pickle-loving friends. It's deep.
I'm going to do a shout out. Doubt he's here anywhere close to here listening to Gilles Raymond, a guy I know who will enjoy just about anything, but to a pickle, he like runs in the other direction. I don't know
Pickles,
what it
like,
is.
You
you
two
can't
need to
even
get
like
together,
just take
Roland.
the pickle off, right? You take the pickle off some shit that's been pickled, and the pickle juices make everything taste like pickle after the fact.
It's-
So it's not
literally
even enough to
ruins-
just take it off.
It can't, but it doesn't do it.
To
It's
port the
just
pickle is not
ruined.
enough. You need to ban it from
It's
coming here.
just ruined once you
You're
put
like
the
the Trump
freaking
of
pickle on.
condiments.
Guys, it's 7:46. And Joel, that was a riot, by the way. And Joel, again, I want to thank you for your hard
You're
work,
welcome. You're welcome.
your
you're welcome.
diligence, and being on the show.
Alex, you can handle being on the show long. You've done it before. This is
Yeah,
what
I
being
know.
a
He
podcast
cannot
is.
I'm
be beat.
worried. I'm
You know,
worried
I'm in a good
about
mood.
boring our
I feel
audience to
like,
death.
Alex,
Okay, this
you
is
need
it.
some snacks. I think you need to have some nuts.
Oh,
that
he
you
needs
can
food.
munch on.
That's what he needs.
I need dinner.
That's
yeah.
absolutely what
Yeah.
it is. He's got his I'm hungry voice on.
What snacks the
guys-
next time? You know what? Arrange snacks next time. We'll all
Yeah,
have
we'll
some.
have.
what
You
I'm
know,
trying
we'll
to
have to
say.
have the same snacks. And on that
I want
note,
lumpia. If anybody wants to send me lumpia from the borough, I'm here.
lumpia.
You can DM me.
What's lumpia?
What's wrong with you?
I
They are Filipino spring rolls, man. They're the best.
I forgot their
They're the
name.
best. The best. The best.
Filipino food is awesome.
Where
Okay,
do you
guys,
get the Filipino spring rolls?
I love you. I love our
Where?
audience.
Yeah,
Remember,
where do you get them?
Anywhere. Go to Boom Boy.
Guys.
Go to Junior. Go anywhere.
killing me.
I'm gonna ask Francis, my friend Francis, who promised a big honking Tupperware full. TikTok, babe.
Yeah, Francis, get us all of them. I'm included now in receiving them.
Francis
That's
has
what happened
COVID, so she's not cooking lumpia.
anytime soon.
Oh, that.
Is that
Yeah.
what you're reading, Alex?
I've read it. Next show, we're having Michael Montague and Joel Newhouse on the show talking about the book Life's Undercard. So if you're into Montreal history, if you want to have a blast from the past, from the 40s and 50s, you have to listen to the show. And I'm really getting into a Montreal reading kick right now, so please join me in that exercise. And
You should join that book club Joel put me on
Yeah.
too. They read
And
whatever
I-
the
Oh,
fuck
the
you want,
NDG.
book
Can I
club.
do a shout out there?
Yeah, absolutely. If Alex can be hungry, we're going to do this properly.
The NDG Read Whatever the Fuck You Want book club. Highly recommend.
It's
They
actually
meet the
called
last Wednesday of every
yes,
month.
it is.
And they meet the last Wednesday of every month, and they're a
Okay.
great bunch of people, and you get to talk about any book you want to talk about, and people ask questions, and you talk about what you loved, what you didn't love. It's a great group, and the beauty is you talk about books, and you don't have to talk about the same damn book. And it's fiction, nonfiction. There's autobiography. There's history, the revisionist. There's all kinds of great
Well, I don't
material.
imagine with that name, whatever fuck you want.
I'm going to say,
exactly
don't
it.
read this book. This book is trash. Scorecard marketing.
Okay, guys, you guys, love you.
All right,
I
thank
love-
y'all for
I
watching,
wanna-
everybody
yes.
out there. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe.
Toronto
Most importantly-
Raptors suck.
I don't know
you
about
know.
that. We the North.
They belong
Um,
down below the 12th
I
spot.
don't know about that, but
I don't even know what
I'm
that
telling
means.
I'm gonna
Trust
I'm
me.
just telling you,
Expressions you
a
have,
solidarity
Joel.
of
It's
the the only Canadian team. Got to rep the
Yeah,
only
yeah.
Canadian
Canadian team, my ass. Toronto Raptors suck.
Fair enough.
Bye,
Appreciate
guys.
all of y'all watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe,
guys are
whatever
killer,
platform
man.
you're on.
Oh,
We're
head on
looking
over right
into-
now to Wheel Club. There's an open mic.
Yeah,
tonight.
Wheel Club is a great place. Please.
Open
please.
mic tonight.
Yeah.
Get on
It's
the list.
not a rap. Yeah, musician.
No, it's not a
type
rap.
people.
It's not a rap. It's
They're
a
like
it's a
they're-
boomer
we're not-
event.
All right,
It's a
guys.
boomer
It's not a
event.
cipher.
I got specifically called by
Let's tie
Cliff
this
and
up.
said, we tried that. We're going in a different direction. So
Right.
all
It
you
ain't no
band
cipher.
people. And appreciate all y'all watching. We're looking into things like merch items. We're trying to get the Trainman buttons and different things so you could rep it all going on. We're going to be starting a Patreon soon so you could show some more fiscal support. But really what you can do to help us is go to Cult Montreal and vote for Trainman Report as the best podcast of technically 2020. We started last year, so we count as the best podcast of 2023 in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it will take on you to go fill up that whole form. I don't really care what you put for the other 24 things you have to put to have your vote count. What really matters is that you put in that best podcast, I think it's number 24 on the list, Trainman Report. And then fill out a bunch of other stuff that's legit so that your vote counts. So pick 24 other Montreal things. Have fun with the restaurant section. Easy. There's like 25 ones right there. On that note, we appreciate you all being here.
Love you.
It's
Send the love,
super
send
wonderful.
Olympia.
I'm just going to start the raid and then we will be out because, yeah, we got people watching on all the platforms today. So thanks for being here. Thanks for those ones who did take the time to comment. And again, the most important thing you can do is tell your friends, but also if you want to clip the show and, you know, make little thingies, post it to social media, let the people know we're out there. We would really appreciate it because the reality of a lot of these things is we can only grow properly based on your support, and we have to be so very annoying about bothering you to do that, and that's just the nature of content in a world where that's how we all behave. So appreciate everybody watching one more time. Thanks, Joel
Thanks for having me.
Ceausu and Alex for being here, and have yourself a great
Hey,
day, everyone.
Holden.
Live long and prosper. My name's easy. It rhymes with a color.